Roula.com. Roula.com/Monty. You guys, you don't have to wonder if you can afford mental health care. It's $15 on average. The average patient client at Roula.com pays $15. And the best part about it is they have qualified therapists ready to take care of you, to talk to you, to deliver you the kind of care you need. You're going to answer a short questionnaire, a couple of questions, Roula.com/Monty. You're going to tell them what you need. They're going to connect you with a provider that handles your specific issues. It's mental health care the way you need it. It's therapy the way you need it. And for just about everybody, it's $15. And they can connect you via video link with a therapist the next day. It's phenomenal. You guys don't suffer under the weight of wondering, am I depressed? Do I not? Or if you know you're depressed, or if you know you have anxiety, or if you're struggling with issues in relationships. That's one of the main things I hear about. Man, I feel like me and my wife, all we do now is fight. Well, there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. Talk to somebody, right? If you're feeling the pressure and the weight of your income and your work and, hey, I can't get over the hump at work, I feel like it, talk to somebody. You would be surprised if you just take one session at Roula.com/Monty. That'll be the best $15 you've ever spent because it will change your life, man. It will absolutely lift the weight of the world off of you no matter what you're dealing with. Job anxiety, relationship anxiety, general depression. Are you unable to control your mind and your thoughts? Roula.com/Monty. Roula.com/Monty. Please support them. I always tell you this. We need you to support our partners because we need those partners to do this show. Roula.com has given us a chance this week to work with them. Please go check it out. Roula.com/Monty. The SEC and the Big Ten hijack college football. Where do you guys come down on how to structure the college football playoff? I think we all know what we've been talking about this on this show for almost a year. We're going to expand the college football playoff. That is happening. But I think one of the real questions on the table, are we going to eliminate conference championship games? And do conference champions get automatic buys in the first round of the college football playoff? If I'm the SEC and the Big Ten, my answer is absolutely not. I want it stacked 1 through 16 based on merit, period. And that merit had better include strength of schedule. And Jake, I think if they stack it like that, if that's in fact what they do, take out the conference championship, rank them 1 to 16, I think that is pure domination for the Big Ten and the SEC.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the hard part is like, I don't think there are many other ways that you would do it. You know, if you're not going to do it the way they're currently doing it and you go to this just raw seeding, you know, straight up seed the teams the way you see them, like I think what's difficult about that for the Big 12 is that I don't know that helps you. And I think that, you know, the Big 12 has talent. The Big 12 clearly showed that they can compete with the SEC on the football field. I don't think we can say they can beat them, but certainly they can make it competitive. And what's tough is that I don't feel like the Big 12 has a way to get back. I don't feel like the Big 12 has this sort of, you know, path to equalizing or leveling the playing field in terms of the college football playoff. And that's what's difficult. It's like, you know, at some point, I would think, you know, the schools we always talk about in the Big 12 who underachieve, who should really do better, you know, the Baylors of the world or whoever you want to point to, like those schools, you know, the Big 12 needs those schools to start performing more so they have more options when it comes to the college football playoff. I made a point yesterday that Greg Sankey doesn't really care who wins the national championship just as long as it's a school from the SEC. And I think that's the luxury that the SEC and the Big Ten have is that, you know, before the Big Ten went on this run where they've won 2 or 3 national championships here, the SEC had dominated the college football playoff. And before that, it was the ACC. But we don't really have a time when the Big 12 had dominated the college football playoff, you know, and that's what I struggle with. It's like, I don't feel like the Big 12 has done enough yet on the big stage to really justify their position at the table. Obviously, there's a seat at the table for them, but you're not going to walk into the room and be, the guy that's controlling the conversation at this point, because you just haven't done enough winning in the college football playoff. And I don't know how you change that.
But I think one of the biggest issues that a lot of people forget about is the SEC and the Big Ten have the controlling interest in the college football playoff. Yes, this goes to a vote. Yes, the Big 12 and the ACC and others could make this more difficult. There's no question about that. But at the end of the day, if the Big 10 and the SEC want this done, and I am told they want this done, that it's 1 through 16 without regard for conference championships, I don't think there's any question that happens. And at that point, what I say is, do you want to play for your conference championship? I don't. I think it's a huge advantage that Notre Dame has. Not in a conference, don't have to worry about a conference championship game. Just be one of the top 12 teams in the country. And at that point, you're one of the top 16 teams in the country. You're in, right? I think it's a huge advantage for Notre Dame.
I would agree.
And if you start looking at how this will impact the balance of power and tipping the power to the Big Ten and the SEC, if it's 16, they're each going to get 5 in. I have no doubt about that. And if they get 5 in, you can't tell me that they're not going to get at least 3 of the 4 buys. At least 3 of the 4 buys.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think, we have to make sure that we're really clear on that, because a lot of people are wondering, because there's been all this talk about like, how many guaranteed spots are these conferences going to have versus
how many buys are there going to be?
Yeah, I think that's part of the debate. I think if you're the Big 12 and the ACC, you don't want as many bye weeks. You want, you want there to be, 2 to 4 bye weeks. You don't want that to bleed into, the top, 6 teams get bye weeks or whatever. You want that to be a limited amount of teams so that there's not this big advantage. And I also think if you're the Big Ten and the SEC, you need to be really careful around who's getting bye weeks and who's not, because Oregon got absolutely embarrassed after their bye week, and Ohio State was just hitting the gas pedal. Like, so I don't even know that necessarily a lot of teams are like, yeah, we want the bye week. Yes, it's handy if you have a lot of injuries.
Sure.
But I think there's a lot of conversation around, like, if your football program's got a lot of momentum, you don't want to be taking a week off and having to do, a different routine. You just want to stay right in the routine. So I think if you're the Big 12 and the ACC, I think your whole objective here is to get to a place where your conference top to bottom gets better, because that's your single biggest problem. And I've always maintained that. The sole purpose that the SEC and the Big Ten are in the position they are in is because they have dominated the college football playoff. 80% of the time, it's been an SEC or a Big Ten champion. Yes, Dabo and Fivehead went on their run, and that's all fine and dandy. But outside of TCU, what really has the Big 12 done?
Texas is back, allegedly.
Not in your conference anymore.
Right?
That's the problem,
finally,
dude.
Texas is actually back, and now they're in the SEC.
So
I think you're exactly right. When you look at the recent history, it's been dominated by the Big Ten and the SEC. And obviously with Michigan and Ohio State going back to back.
And that concept you were talking about, though, like if let's say that it does shift to this 4-and-4 model where the Big Ten and the SEC both have 4 guaranteed slots, and they do it in this new potential seeding format. That to me is really troublesome for college football in the bigger picture, because what you can't have is, okay, the SEC and the Big Ten have 4 guaranteed spots, and then on any given year, let's just say on a random year, no fault of their own, but just in a random year, let's say that the SEC pops off for 6-7 teams because they're just that good. And let's say the Big 12 had a bad year or the ACC had a bad year. Like, this seeding system, in my opinion, opens the door to one conference or another conference, dominating, and torching the field, which again, I'm not the guy that sits here and blames them for that. I'd
be doing the same thing, man.
I'd be doing the same thing. So
if I could power grab, are you kidding me?
I'm not turning the Big Ten and the SEC into the villain like a lot of people are. I would be advocating for the same thing, because yes, the bye week was problematic for the Big Ten this year, but most years, is it going to be a problem? And
well, how problematic was it when Ohio State won the national championship? Obviously, it was problematic for Oregon.
yeah,
I mean, there's no doubt about that. But the other thing I would point out is one of the college football guys that I talked to pretty regularly was telling me the money for TV is too important for the SEC championship game to go away. If you look at ESPN, what's ESPN got on championships? Everything but the Big Ten. They've got the ACC. They've got the Big 12 and the SEC. That's a lot of money for them going away in sponsorship dollars.
right.
And I think what you could see, especially in the Big 10 and the SEC, I don't know if it works in the Big 12 and the ACC because you only have 2 spots. You either put your conference champions automatically, those are the 2 teams going to the college football playoff. But if you're the Big 10 and the ACC, I think there's no question your top 2 teams in the regular season auto bid into the college football playoff. The conference championship determines who that 3rd and 4th seed are. And I think that conference champion has to be worth something. It has to be worth something. And I think if you are the Big Ten and the SEC, it certainly makes the plight of teams like Ole Miss and Alabama, who felt like they had cases this year, whether they did or not, who gives a damn? But they felt like they had cases this year for getting in. Well, guess what? Now you can earn your way in, get into the 3rd and 4th spot, and you can play for an automatic qual, whatever that might be. That conference championship game model is going to stay around because ESPN and ABC make too much money.
Mm-hmm.
That is very logical thinking. Not my own, because, well, you guys tell me every day how stupid I am. But not my own. But I think it's a really good point that we make too much money. TV makes too much money on conference championship games to see them go away.
Yeah.
So, hey, it's either got to be on conference championship weekend, you have like the JV game for the 3rd and 4th spot. Because you can't rightly say, and let's say it's Ohio State and Oregon, because I think they're going to be the 2 best teams in the conference again. You can't rightly tell Oregon and Ohio State, well, you got to fight for that conference championship. Right, but then Michigan State and Illinois are already going in. Why don't they have to risk injury to their best players? How do you weigh that?
Yeah.
How do you weigh that? Does the conference championship game become the conference play-in game? Well, that doesn't have as much heat for sponsors or television. I mean, hell, CBS and Fox are paying, and NBC are paying $100 million for the Big Ten.
Yeah.
You're telling me that they can, well, we can just do it without. No, I don't think you can do without. But what will happen? Well, we're going to go to a Super League. Then what, Monty? You know what then, Monty? What happens then is we play made-for-television big matchups to replace those games. Because now we don't have to worry about losing an early season game because the playoff structure's set. So we can have the USC Auburn game, Texas at the Shoe against Ohio State, made for television at whatever stadium.
Right.
Do you know how much money Atlanta makes on the Kickoff Classic? Do you know how much money those cities make when they host big games like that? I think it absolutely matters. I think it stays. I think we've got to get to a Super League so that this conference championship thing, I think it would be a huge travesty of justice to say, we're not going to play conference championship games anymore. Honest to God, I think it would be one of the real tragedies.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think you have to have something to play for. You know, I think that there has to be, you know, and that's, there's a lot of options there. I mean, I would agree you can't lose your conference championship game, but maybe it doesn't have anything to do with seeding per se. Maybe you can exclude those and make it a monetary thing, or I don't know. There are a million different ways you could go about it, but you can't have a conference without having a conference champion.
Well, and another really good point a buddy of mine is texting me about. Buddy's texting me about. How many conference championship t-shirts do you think they sell for $50?
A lot, dude.
and hats and
Buddy gets
sweatshirts.
paid
and
a lot of money.
Buddy gets paid a lot of money for winning a conference championship. I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
That is a great point. Another USC fan, by the way, fight off. I think it's very interesting. I don't think they can go away. I truly don't think they can go away. All right, Rock and Rant, a member of the show for 10 months. Hey, Cam Ward sucks. Cam Ward's terrible. He's not nearly as good as Shador's brother's cousin.
And stuff.
Prick. On 3 team clearly has a drinking problem.
If you ain't first, you're last.
Right? Absolutely they do. Jeff Woodworth, a member of the show for 13 months.
Yeah, Jeff. Jeffy Boo.
You guys, are we asking for, why do we have to do the Trash Panda video every day? Dude, hey, man.
Money.
Listen, we need Aaron Rodgers coming out of the ayahuasca trance. Can we get some Aaron Rodgers in the dumpster?
Oh, fucking God.
How about that?
It's the girl in the background. Oh, my effing. Phenomenal. Trash Panda video. How about that? Kawhi laugh. Exactly. There you go. That's what you get when you've been a member of the show for 13 months. Appreciate you very much. Let's get some of your thoughts in here. Who are you guys hanging out with? I ride Bart to work every day and have not caught one virus. Winning.
Dude, I have you tell the story. I mean, it's a, you know, it's a pretty legit story.
So Jake hired a pro one night. And he
doesn't get any more red, white, and blue than that.
He was feeling a little desperate. I think you started it.
Macaque.
I think we went to spring training and there was a lady defecating from her mouth on the plane. My wife got very sick after spring training because this lady was coughing on our plane. So my wife, of course, coughs all night right into my ear. So I get it. And then Jake and I in Chicago were cuddling. Jake and I in Chicago hanging out together. He gets it.
We did what we did.
And neither one of us has gotten over it yet. So I think
I guess I'll have to figure something out.
When you're in an airplane 3-4 times in the span of a month, it's rough. You know what the thing is? I don't care what people think anymore. Next time I fly, I'm wearing a mask. When I go to
coronavirus.
When I go to Chicago in July,
dude,
I'm going
to be in a shape, dude. Come on.
Shut your mouth. I can't wear them, Avis. Don't take those. You don't take those.
What the fuck are you, Ranger Rick?
Buddy can't barely talk, and he's out here giving health advice.
Vaccinations are terrible for people.
And we were saying that.
They have red dye 40 in them.
It was the virus that killed it.
Shut up. Although I'm a huge fan of not drinking red dye. I read a study. And thankfully now, Kookbird, doctor guy, who's not a doctor at all, eliminating food coloring. Fantastic. Red dye 40 is terrible for you.
Hydroxychloroquine.
Dude, seriously, light in your butthole. Like, it is a big deal. So, you know. Edgar Alas. Where do you think Memphis and USF end up in the future?
I think that's really difficult, dude. I mean, the Big 12 would be a nice fit, but I don't know that we're going to get a major, and this isn't unique to those two. I don't know that we're going to get major realignment before the Super League shows up. I think that there's too much there's too much risk and cost in realignment to do that before this commitment financially to the Super League. And I don't know, like, obviously Dr. Ed Scott's been on this show, talked about how they want to win at the highest level in both sports. And I really respect that. But there's a difference between, like, with football, obviously Memphis basketball is doing really well. But in football, that's a totally different level you're talking about potentially looking at here. And so when you ask, hey, well, where is Memphis and USF or Tulane going to wind up? Like, I don't know that it really depends on their commitment to the Super League. If they're not interested in the Super League,
but here's the thing.
Who's to say?
If you're Memphis and USF, and I'm not taking credit for this again, because I want you guys to know these are not all my thoughts. I was talking to a TV guy last week about the Pac-12 deal.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that was earlier this week, whenever it was. And we were talking about the AAC members. And this particular person said, if you're Memphis, and he brought up Texas State or whoever you want to point to. If you're Memphis and you sign a 5-year grant of rights in the Pac-12.
Right.
And the Pac-12 is a G5 because they are not going to ever be a power league as much as I think they would like to.
I just don't know that even if it wasn't the Pac-12, even if it was another conference, I just don't know that there's a way back or a willingness to let that situation grow back to a power situation.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
You sign a 5-year grant of rights with the Pac-12. Are they going to let you out of it? Is it going to be cost prohibitive to get out of it?
Yes. Almost certainly.
Is that going to preclude you from a Super League spot if it happens in that 5-year window? So if you're Dr. Ed Scott, again, I agree we don't live in a what-if scenario.
Mm-hmm.
But what if? How long of a grant of rights are you willing to commit to in a new league that's on very shaky footing?
I don't live in a what-if scenario.
Good question, dude. It's a good question. Because what if I want to go to the Super League and the Pac-12, Washington State or Oregon State can't get in? I can't afford to buy into it. Then I'm just stuck? No, I don't think so.
But you would be. That's
yeah,
the thing.
You would be. But the other thing is, and I think this is critical, I don't think we're going to have these windows where, hey, we're going to start with 30 teams in the Super League and 2 years from now. You want to opt in now? Great, let's do it. You don't want to opt in now? I think it's going to be very difficult for you to get in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Because, one, the money's big now. What do you think it's going to be in the future? Bigger. And I'm sure there will be expansion at some point. But I'm telling you, the more and more I talk to people, especially TV people, about the Super League, that number keeps getting smaller. That number has gone from 80 to 60 that I had a TV network executive tell me the other day. I could see 40 to 50 teams.
Well, why would you want it bigger than that? Think about it.
They don't.
You wouldn't want it bigger than that because, again, and I know I keep bringing this up, but it's the verbiage that Kyle Whittingham used at Big 12 Media Days, right? It's an NFL minor league model. So the NFL's model obviously is 32 teams. So why would you want it any bigger than that?
Well, I don't even know that it's that. And actually, I think that's a good point. Listen to Kyle Whittingham on Sikkim 365 talking about this.
So much change already, and there's more on the horizon. I can tell you that we're not done. I think it's ultimately going to get to 2 super conferences and their own playoff system and probably break away from the NCAA. Have a commissioner and all. It's an NFL minor league model. I think is where we're heading in that regard.
Now, Kyle, he doesn't listen to the Monty Show. But that's what we've been telling you. I think for TV, I think there is too many teams at some point. And when you look at the way that sports works now, I'm starting to hear, I think this is an interesting discussion. Very quietly, ESPN has been telling its sports partners, yeah, we don't think you should be doing that deal with Netflix or Amazon. We're launching this ESPN thing. Their direct-to-consumer model. We're launching this ESPN thing. It's going to have more reach than those guys. Yeah, but we want to spread our wings. Well, you spread your wings. You might want to build a nest over there because there might not be room for you over here.